Good day, I'm Fernando Manalo from ECE42, and today's experiment is about sensors and microcontrollers. Now, technically, this experiment uses the packet tracer, but we have we were given an option to use the Raspberry Pi and perform the reflection part of the packet tracer activity. Now, in part 4, there are two challenges, which is for the first challenge, port spark fan starter kits circuit 1 blinking an LED into packet tracer, but where you will be using the Raspberry Pi. And then the next challenge is to use 8 LEDs lined up, and every time the push button is pressed, the currently lit LED goes dark and the next one illuminates. There must only be one LED lit up at any given time. And instead of using the PT my MCU, which is in the packet tracer, we will doing an actual experiment using the Raspberry Pi 4. And here is my setup for today's experiment. As you can see, this is my Raspberry Pi 4 with an HDMI cable connected to, the power cable connected to it, and I've already set up the LED array that we will be using later for this experiment. And I've already connected it to the required pin, as I have been tinkering with it before doing this vlog. And to start the experiment, I simply need to turn on my Raspberry Pi or plug it in, as I have enabled VNC, and we will control it in my laptop. Now I will turn it on, and now the Raspberry Pi is turned on. Now I will switch to the screen record of my laptop. Now that my Raspberry Pi is turned on, we will first see using the command prompt if the Raspberry Pi is connected in my local network. Using the ping command, ping Raspberry Pi. And as you can see, it's showing replies of packets, which means my Raspberry Pi is connected. Now, I will open VNC viewer, which I already set up to access the desktop of the Raspberry Pi. Now we're in the desktop of the Raspberry Pi through VNC. And we will go to programming and then go to Tony Python IDE so that I can enable my code. First is the blink.py, which corresponds to the challenge 1, blinking an LED using a microcontroller. But in this case, I will be using the Raspberry Pi. And I will run, and then I will switch to my camera so that we can see it running. I will run. As you can see, I've run the code, and for the first challenge, the LED one, which is this one, which is connected to pin number 5 of GPIO 0, and the LED is blinking connected to pin 5, LED 1. Now for the next part of the experiment, which is challenge 2, we'll be using 8 LEDs, and they must be lined up. Every time the push button is pressed, the currently lit LED goes dark and the next one illuminates. There must be only one LED lit up at any given time. And to do this, I've already created the code and simply load it, this LED button. And what I did is I set 8 LEDs in pins 5, 6, 13, 19, 26, 16, 20, 21, and button on pin number 2 of the GPIO 0. And for the code, I simply use the button that wait for press. First, after running the code, the LED will be turned on, LED 1. Pressing wait for press blocks the code, and after pressing, LED 1 is off, LED 2 is on, and then delay, and then the same thing repeats until it reaches button 8, and then loops back to button 8, turns off button 8 and loops back to LED 1. And to see the actual, I will switch to my camera. But before we do that, we will stop the running code, which is the blink for challenge 1, and then run this code. And as you can see, the LED button .py is running, and the first LED is currently lit up. Now, according to the challenge 2, for the part 4 reflection, every time I push this button, the red button, the currently lit LED goes dark and the next one illuminates. So I'll press this, it illuminates the next one and the next one, then the next one, and next one, red, green, goes back to 1, LED 2, 3, LED 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now, and we successfully created it, and it is working properly. And that is the end of today's experiment. And using the Raspberry Pi 4, I have successfully created the reflection part 4, which is to port spark fan starter kit circuit 1 blinking an LED in the Raspberry Pi, and the challenge 2, which is using 8 LEDs lined up, and wherein I successfully created the code and a circuit that every time I press the push button, the currently lit LED goes dark and the next one illuminates. And that is the end of today's experiment, and thank you.